Hello, I'm Dr. J.C. Matthews, and I'm here with my wife, Gena Matthews, and we want to talk about romance today. Romance. I know Valentine's Day is coming up, so everybody is getting their ideas together and trying to make it a special day. But we want to talk about the importance of romance in the truest sense. We're going to try to give you some insights and maybe and even some help on how to keep romance alive and how to keep romance going. I think if you were to ask people what is their idea of romance, you'll be surprised that even married couples, when you talk about romance, their definitions might be different. So if I were to ask you, what is your definition of romance, what would you say it is?
My definition of romance is anything that the couple, each person would do to um, cause the other person to be romantically inclined towards them.
Okay.
Any effort that they will put towards that, that's what I would consider romance.
Okay. So from my perspective, romance would be um, my trying to through my words, through my actions, through different expressions, trying to um, build up in you a confidence that I love you in whatever way that would take place. Now I have to admit, and co-pastor will contest this. I'm not the most romantic person in the sense, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to explain why I said romantic, but I believe in romance, and so as you can see, our definitions they overlapped in some areas, but they were there. Some of those were outside of my definition, and some of the things that I said weren't mentioned in her definition. So if romance is a mutual thing, then there has to be some level of learning the other person. And you've heard us talk about this before at Roots Marriage Ministry Moment about how the ongoing process of learning your spouse.
Yes.
And so guys, don't worry if you're not the romantic type. I have some friends that, how they proposed and how they did a lot of things put me to shame. But they're not still married.
Exactly.
And so I think they are romantic. They know how to be romantic. But I think that I've learned how to romance.
Yes.
To romance my wife. And this is an important issue because, like I said, not Fourth of July. Hopefully Valentine's Day will be 4th of July, but with fireworks and everything. But Valentine's Day is just that, it's a day.
Exactly.
And so people want to romance their spouse on a day with something that is romantic.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get surprised when they don't get the response from the spouse, or the gratitude or the enduring effect of that day doesn't go on into the rest of the week. It's because it was a day, it was an event.
Yes.
And, it's in everybody, the world is kind of telling them this is a day you need to show appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of the things that I did was I wanted to find out what the world's definition of romance was.
Yeah.
And so if you could read it, I have one from Wikipedia, and then I have the other one from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. If you could read both of them.
Okay. The definition from Wikipedia is romance is an emotional feeling of love for or a strong attraction towards another person, and the courtship behaviors undertaken by the individual to express those overall feelings and resultant emotions. Now, the Webster Dictionary definition is number one, a tale based on legend, chivalric love and adventure, or the second definition is supernatural, something such as an extravagant story or account that lacks basis in fact. And the third definition is an emotional attraction.
Now, looking at those definitions, I think part of that definition is sad.
Yeah, it is.
Because They said
No
that,
basis in fact.
yeah, that romance has no basis in fact. Now, looking from a world standpoint, and I think that people attempting from a strictly carnal standpoint
Yeah.
to create something that is supernatural, or something that is enduring, or something that is really has integrity to it.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have been romanced and then deceived in some form or
Yes.
fashion, or hurt, or rejected, that they've come that the world has come to the conclusion that romance is not a reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no person can over an extended period of time demonstrate and express a standard or a certain level of appreciation, love, affection, and passion, because things inevitably will take place that will cause that romance to fall apart.
And I think it's important that you said that was the world's definition and the world's mindset, because as people who are supposed to be believers and followers of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
love should be part of our makeup, and we have to put in effort towards, when you're dealing with marriage, towards working with our spouse on that area. That's an important area.
And I think the word that Gena used, that we're going to talk about in just a little bit, that's so important, is the word work.
Mm-hmm.
Because romance is work. And I'm going to show you why, and I'm going to mention it again. But the reason why most romances fail or romances die in a relationship is because of the work that's involved.
Yes.
It's not like it's not something that can just you know just happen.
Right.
And we're going to talk about, I have a couple things here that I want to point out are elements of what I believe, and from what I've seen and learned through our relationship, are elements of cultivating romance in your relationship over an enduring and extended period of time, and a kind and quality of romance where the other person receives it as such.
Yes.
The longer that we get married, and the more wisdom that God gives me, and the more we grow together, I realize that romance actually becomes a lifestyle.
Yes.
It is something that there's a cultivation that takes place as two people grow together, and you get and you continually learn one another, that the ability to connect with that person in a meaningful way and to do romantic things,
Mm-hmm.
and over a period of time. And I was going to point out that romantic things don't have to cost a whole lot.
They sure don't.
They don't have to, they don't have to be expensive or extravagant. As a matter of fact, there's some people that level of romantic, that romanticism would turn them off.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on a person's background, where they come from, they might feel it's excessive, and they might appreciate the more simple things that mean more to them. While on the other end, you might be somebody, or you might be married to somebody who likes to bling, who likes to bling bling, who evaluates your value of them based on how much you spend on them. Now, I know of several relationships where that's the case, and I know of several relationships where that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's up to you to discover what your spouse or what your significant other, because this is a part of dating too.
Yes.
If you're not married and you are you're in a relationship with someone, again, you need to find out whether or not some flowers will do it, or do they want to be taken out to eat. So that's something that you have to pay attention to. But what I want to do is I want to point out something in those definitions that we gave you. They talked about emotions, feelings, attraction, basically fairy tale, and lacks basis in fact.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that emotions, feelings, and attractions, they are aspects of romance, but they're not the sum total.
Right.
A lot of people don't feel, if I'm not emotionally in a place where I feel a certain way about a certain person. Again, feelings, and or for some reason I've lost attraction to the person, whether physically or whatever it might be. That romance is impossible. And I'm going to show you a little bit later that it's even possible in rough situations,
Yeah,
in
it
very difficult
is.
situations, to maintain romance. To maintain romance, um, it again. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but somebody's physical appearance, basically how you feel about the person, um, your emotions, those are all driven by what you think of the person,
Yes.
what you think of the person. And so, what I would suggest, I'm going to give you a definition that I think is a marital definition that I think will help kind of bridge the gap between, you know, people who have either lost romance or they think romance have died or they don't have those sensual type of attractions anymore. And I want to show you why that is not determinative as to whether or not romance can be a reality in your marriage or your relationship. Um, if you could read, baby, the part that says maritally, I would define romance as being.
Okay. Um, Maritally, I would define romance as being the ongoing expression of love, passion, and appreciation that demonstrates and assures the other their worth and value in the eyes of the other.
So look at what that definition says. It basically says that I'm going to highlight some things. Ongoing expression. Ongoing. So it's not an event. Love. You got married because you said you loved the person. So somewhere along the line, you recognize that this person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Out of all of the people that's in the world, you came to the conclusion to slow your life down, get family together, spend money, have a witness to say, I love you, to death do us part, you're my partner, you're it. And I would suggest that if, and this is getting back to the emotions, the feelings, and those sorts of things, that if that is not present, you've lost that person that you married somewhere. That person is still there, but something has allowed your perception of that person to change to a place where you're not able to relate to them properly. And again, I'm going to show you why even in bad situations, romance is still possible. So we have love, we got ongoing expression of love, passion, and appreciation that demonstrates and assures the other of their, here it is, worth and value in your eyes or the other person's eyes. So I think that at the foundation of true romance, there is an evaluation of worth that's placed on a person that's being pursued. Think about it. If you read romance novels, I guarantee you this is the plot. There is somebody that is the pursuer, and then there's somebody that's being pursued, and then there's some obstacles or some struggle or some something that is keeping them from coming together and realizing the objective or having the other person. And we all celebrate at the end. Now listen to what I'm saying, because the person does actually acquire or fall in love in the sense of marry the person or whatever the case might be. They overcome those obstacles in order to pursue and enter into a relationship with that person that they found valuable enough to endure all of those things.
Yeah, I think the more important thing in dealing with romance, and because I don't think people struggle with romance so much while dating or when you first get married. I think the issues of dealing with people saying there's a loss or they're no longer have attraction or whatever the deal is. When people have been married for a bit of time or they've gone through something or issues come up, I think that's when people start to look at romance differently. I think their mindset changes in regards to it. I don't know what those factors are, but I think that's more what I see, because I don't see people when people are dating, they have a choice. They're not married to the person. If they decide this person is not it, or there's nothing there,
Mm-hmm.
then they move on and
Right.
go on to the next person. But when you have gotten married and you go through a situation or whatever the case may be that causes the romance to fizzle out, that's where I think people have more issues in regards to not
Yeah.
having romance.
Yeah. And I'm going to say some things that we're going to talk about and mention over and over again. One, romance is a decision.
Yes.
It's a decision that you have to make, and a decision doesn't mean that it has to be an easy
Yeah.
decision. Some decisions that you make are tough decisions, but they're right decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something to be said about decisions made in a tough situation where the individual sees you struggling, sees you trying, sees you trying to overcome, sees you trying to build something, even if you're failing, in the sense that there's very little manifestation. Maybe even you lost some things, and you had to take a couple steps back. I mentioned earlier that even in those tough situations, romance can be a reality because we went through those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted her to see was that I'm trying because I want better for you. I want you to realize the promises that I made.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see the things that you desire to see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you those things. So I'm working to try to work these things out so that can be a reality.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that, even in the midst of a very difficult situation, that were helpful was that we would do, and we talked about this earlier. You mentioned that it doesn't have to be something expensive. We would do tiny things like go and get a cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
or go for a walk. Just little things to help keep the romance going, because we needed something to hold on to.
And let me tell you something. And the many times when we went and got those coffees, um, we wanted to cry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we sitting in there, but we were together.
Yes.
It was a thing like, we're going to fight this thing together. We're going to get through this together. This is not going to overcome us, because we both as a team are going to overcome this together. And I valued what she was doing in the meantime while I was trying to handle the other aspects of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So we were working together through a very difficult time. And, there were a lot of times where I seen the things that we went through, a lot of people didn't make it through.
Right.
Because I believe that the situation, because of how bad the situation became, they became adversaries instead of
Right.
teammates,
Right.
where they started to view one another as the problem.
Yeah, the enemy.
And instead of, I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see this thing through so that we can have a testimony.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we did during those times, going for coffee, or like I said, going for a walk, we would talk. We would cast vision of our dreams of what we wanted to be in our marriage and what we wanted to be in our family, and not just complain about the situation that we were currently in, but we were speaking about what we wanted, what we planned to do to get there, to realize our dreams. And I think that was really something that I think other couples could really hold on to. If you do that, spend time together, casting vision for your marriage and for your family.
I think that's very important. point, because even when you talk about the definition given in the world for romance and where the romance novels come from, one of the things that I noticed that they said was that it is a reference to a kind of romance novels actually come from a reference to a kind of literary literature that focuses on love, adventure, beauty, vision, and dreams of better.
Yeah.
And so what she is saying is so true, that we romanced over possibilities.
Yes.
What the possibilities were, although our situation was jacked. I mean, it was a situation where if you had a right mind, I mean, you really had to put on the mind of Christ. You really had to see spiritually, because if you use the right mind, a natural mind, I'm calling it right mind, a natural mind, that people say, look at the facts.
Right.
Look at this. 1 + 1 = 2. Now, we were saying 1 + 1 = 2 right now, but it doesn't have to stay this way. So we would cast vision, and we would talk about possibilities. And that was one of the things that we used to do. We used to go to get our coffee at a place that had an ambience to it that reminded us of where we wanted to go.
Yes.
So we could be romantic, even though it cost $5 for, we would get the small cups. And at that time it was like $2.50, $2.75 for a cup of coffee. End up spending $5. We would sip on that coffee and kind of talk about and cast vision and talk about possibilities and what God was going to do. And God is faithful. And you would forget. I mean, by the time you got done with your cup of coffee, we had
you had the strength to go back into the situation.
We had become empowered by, okay, let's hit it. Okay, the work the work begins now. So this is something that anybody could do. This is what we're talking about. This is anybody. You can always talk about possibilities.
Yes.
Even in the midst of a mess, you could look and say, do you know what? I actually wrote a book entitled "Your Situation is Not Your Destination." That came out of reality.
Yeah, it did.
that wasn't something I just thought of. Like, man, that's a catchy phrase. I used to say that to myself. I used to say that to my wife and to my family. Our situation is not our destination. It's only preparation. We are preparing. God is preparing us for something. And so when we started to go through things, it wasn't final.
Right.
We saw it as formative. We saw it as an opportunity to overcome it. And so let me give you a couple of things that I want to kind of put out there as elements, what I believe constitutes romance. I think there's 4 of them. If you could read them, baby.
Intentional, a decision. Is this?
Mental.
Yeah, okay. The second one is mental, natural, and spiritual. The third is continual and ongoing pursuit. And the fourth is investment in and the currency of a marriage or relationship.
Okay, so you write these down, because these are important, because these are not the sum total of romance, but I believe that each one of them plays a part in developing a culture or an environment where romance can grow and can exist. So you got intention. It must be a decision. It must be intentional. You have to decide that I am going to love him or her, the person.
Yes.
Not what you think they should be, or not where they're not yet, where they are at. I'm going to love them. It's a decision, and I'm going to be there for them. That is an intentional decision. I'm immovable. One of the things that my wife and I said to one another early on after marriage, and we would have our disagreements and so on and so forth, we would say to one another, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. We're not leaving.
We're not leaving. Hey, I will stalk you. No, but seriously, I wanted to communicate to her that we can disagree, we can even have arguments, but I'm not going anywhere. That's and guess what? I believe that was kind of, in its own way, a romantic. like I said, I'm not the most romantic person in the sense, but I think I understand romance, and I think that statement, like I said, if the definition of romance is acquiring or bestowing on a person a value, and that you are talking about their worth, that communicated to her, I'm worthy of enduring whatever. You know, that I'm not put in a position where if we have an argument, then
it's over.
Yeah, that it's over. No, we're gonna come back together after we cool down, because I'm not going anywhere, and she would say the exact same thing.
Right.
So I think that was an underbelly, that kind of or foundation, if you will, that established the environment for romance to be able to be developed.
That's right.
And then the second one is romance is mental, natural, and spiritual. I can't emphasize that enough. That what I found out is that in order for, like I said, I'm not the most romantic person. So, but I think I understand a mentality of romance. So what I would try to do is I would try to assure her at whatever place or situation or level in our relationship we were at, before we had kids, after multiple kids, after grandkids. I want her to see in my eye the same sparkle.
Yeah, that was very important for me to be able to know that he still felt that same way about me. And I think that's important for anyone who wants to keep romance alive in their marriage, to know that it's still there. It hasn't changed because we've gotten older. It hasn't changed because we've been through some things. It hasn't changed because we're in a different season. Just to continue to have that spark in your marriage is important.
And I can tell you this, that the seasons of life sweeten romance.
Yes.
I mean, after you've been through some things, I look at my wife. She gave me 4 children, and she stuck through things that I believe lesser people would have left. She's partnered with me and encouraged me in ministry when I had nobody. I mean, nobody knew who J.C. Matthews was. I was writing books and typing out curriculums with no students, and my wife would be the one who would read it and say, "This is good. This is you should continue." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, in the natural, who's going to enroll? Who's going to buy it? Who's going to read it? But, though, after looking back over those types of things, it created an environment where we could relate to one another. And I'm trying to get a word, and this is why I say romance is spiritual. It created something that was more than mental and something more than natural. It was a spiritual element to it that comes through, I think, getting through the mental blocks, the anguish and things that would logically tell you to quit, or this not worth it, or what you think about that person. And then the natural things, just lack and just obstacles and just a lot of different things. At a certain point, I think when you cultivate that type of environment and you instill that type of worth and value in one another, there's a unity that's not natural.
Yeah.
And romance becomes a lot easier at whatever level you're at. You could be dead broke. And if that type of foundation has been laid, you will still be able to value and esteem and perceive the other person as being worthy of your best efforts. And so, that's, and I can't think of a word, because I think it's, I would have to go into tongues trying to explain what I see in the spirit. But I think hopefully with some of what we shared, I'm still trying to get it out. There's a word for it, but I just can't think of it right now. Maybe if you
you were going to the next one.
Go on to the next one. It'll come up.
A major element is also a continual and ongoing pursuit.
Okay. While that other thing is moving around in my spirit, I think as we mentioned at the very start of this lesson or our time together, we talked about, yes, Valentine's Day is coming up, but the process of romance is an ongoing one.
Yes, it is.
Is an ongoing one.
It should never be just about a day. When you were talking earlier about sometimes people don't react to your romantic interest the way that you want, because you've only put it in on maybe a particular day, like it may be your anniversary or Valentine's Day. Romance has to be throughout the year, 365 days.
365 days, every day. I would be, it is actually, this would be a indicator that if you brought flowers home that your wife just about fell out. If I saw that, I would know she's starving. You haven't been watering that garden, because she has being taken back by you doing that means that it hasn't happened, or it's not something that usually happens. So now she's taken back by your gesture of expression of appreciation. I would be even, it will be a better scenario. You give her the flowers and she's like, thank you. And you understand what she means by that. At the same time, you're not saying, well, she's ungrateful about it, but you recognize that she's used to getting them. That this is something, okay, thank you. Like I try to make sure that my wife always has fresh flowers. So I would, back in the day when I could only buy one rose,
Yes.
I would bring home that raggedy rose, and now it's the best one I could find for the money that I can get it for, but I would give it to her, and she would get a vase out, put water in it, and put it in the middle of the table or whatever the case might be, and showcase that one rose. And so now when I'm able to get her flowers, I try to do it on a consistent basis because that's how I continue to let her know, baby, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you do in the home. I appreciate how you just hold everything together. I don't have the words to tell you your worth and your value, but I want to continually show you expressions of how much I appreciate that. And so, so the romance cannot just be a romantic event. That's why I tried to make that distinction earlier, that there's a lot more people that are a lot more romantic.
Right.
But I believe that I've learned quite a bit about romance in the sense of growing to learn my wife and how to express my appreciation and her worth. Not only in flowers, but I'll do things like this. She'll walk by and I'll say something real faint. I'll go, she'll stop and say, what? And I say, oh, nothing. She knows what I was saying. I was saying something about how nice she looks, how, I would say how fine she is, those sorts of things. And I would say it real faint. And it's almost like a joke now that she'll walk by and I'll just, she'll say, what? Those type of things. I mean, it creates an environment that's playful.
And it didn't cost him a thing.
It
Those
doesn't.
are things you could do. It doesn't have to cost you anything, but just the effort that you put in towards being romantic.
And what I'm saying to her is, after 4 children, after 4 grandchildren, after the ups and the downs, the moves and ministry and all these other things, in my eyes, you still got it. Still fine. And I say that not trying to bolster her ego or anything like that. That's how I feel. And I think that it's genuine and she receives it in the same way. I think that if it's not an ongoing type of thing, and a person has, because of lack of feeling valued or appreciative, even words like that could take on a totally different meaning to a person that has just given up on the situation.
Exactly.
And if that's the case in one of our maybe at the end of this one or another lesson on romance, what we want to do is talk about how to rekindle romance because it's not dead.
Right.
You know, when a person says that romance is dead, it really means that they've stopped trying. Either the person has given up or you've given up.
Right.
So the person that you're married to or in the relationship with, they have given up or you have given up. And when that takes place, again, it's simply a decision.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to get right back on track. And so I think the next thing that we talked about, or the last part we talked about, it has to be a decision, mental, natural, and spiritual. It has to be something that's ongoing, that pursuit that we mentioned. And then the last element of romance, at least from our perspective, is investment.
Yes.
It is investment. As a matter of fact, I think romance is the currency that a relationship, specifically a marriage, runs on. You know, I think one of the reasons why there has been a loss of romance in a lot of people's relationship is that there hasn't been enough deposits.
Right. Very true.
And you know, that goes along with, you know, the ongoing nature. All of these things kind of go together. But I think there has to be some intentional deposits, whether they be mental, natural, spiritual, that causes the person to have something to reciprocate with. You know, it's almost like a bank account. You can't not put anything in the bank and then after a period of time, you're going to get a notice that puts you, it's going to make you aware that you ain't deposited anything. Ain't nothing here to make a withdrawal on.
That's right. I think that is one of the things that really shocks people, because I think there are a lot of people who put a lot of effort into dating. Once they have conquered or pursued and got what it is that they are after, I don't think a lot of times the same effort goes into continuing in the marriage. And when that takes place, a marriage is like forever, is till death do you part. When that takes place and you don't, like you said, make deposits or plant anything, water, you can't expect a harvest.
And again, remember the definition that we gave you where we talked about its valuing and worth.
Right.
You invest in things that are valuable,
yes,
or that's worth investing in. You just don't open up your stock account or an investment software and just close your eyes and start pressing keys and your money just go anywhere. No, you actually take the time and you evaluate.
That's right.
Is this going to be worth me putting money in?
That's right.
And
if you've married someone, you've already made that evaluation, and it is very necessary to continue to do what's necessary to build in that relationship, to continue to invest in that person, to continue to water your garden, to continue to make that person feel like they're, part of your life, and not just because we're married and you're not going anywhere. I don't really have to do anything to make this work.
Yeah, a lot of people that get married and after a period of time, romance falls away. In their heart, they feel like they've gotten got.
Right.
Right. Now that you got me, now I'm set over in a corner just to dry and shrivel up.
Right.
Or to just be your maid, or to just be your public partner in appearances,
right,
or your business partner. And you have to be careful, because you have to recognize that other person has emotional needs. They have to feel valued. They have to feel important. And especially in the eyes of the person that they have a covenant with, the one that is supposed to be there for them, that is supposed to be a strength for them. And when that those investments stop taking place, that indicates to the person that's to the other person that they're valuable. That person, remember when we said when romance dies, either that person gives up
Right.
or you gave up.
Yeah.
Well, they'll give up.
Right.
They'll a lot of people will say, well, I just won't talk, or I just won't. And what they're saying is basically, I'm not going to invest any more energy and time in trying
Right.
to resuscitate
Right.
something that that's on life support.
Right.
And so
And I think that people don't realize that other people outside of your situation can see when there has been no investment on either side. You can tell when something is hungry or needy, and it's not a good place to be.
Yeah, and that's the saddest thing that I've seen. I've seen couples that are married and they have a spouse that's needy.
Right.
Not needy in the sense of wanting a lot of stuff, in the sense of tangible things.
Right.
You could tell they are emotionally
Yes.
hungry.
Yes.
And those people are vulnerable. And so, most people probably wouldn't see something like that, but being discerning and dealing with people, being in ministry and that sort of thing, you deal with people, you kind of pick up on it, and you recognize that something has died that is important to that relationship, although they're physically still together.
Right.
It's almost like you come across something that's been together and got cracks in it. It's still together, but it's crusty. It's fragile.
Right.
And a lot of people's relationships are like that. They appear to be together, but if you take a closer look,
You can see the cracks.
you could see the cracks, and it's because somebody somewhere has stopped making the investment. And I'm just going to put it on the men. I think that that's your responsibility. I think that God has set it up so that we are to pursue our spouses, and our spouses don't want to feel like they got.
Right.
Once now that I married you, all of a sudden the compliments stop.
Right.
All of a sudden you stop talking to me in the way that you used to talk to me. All of a sudden you too busy for the things that I want to do, and it's always what you want to do. And what that will do is psychologically and emotionally dry your spouse up.
Right.
Where she becomes now, she now takes a perspective, I don't care.
Right. And that impacts in several ways. One of the ways it impacts is, of course, how she thinks mentally in regards to her spouse, but it also impacts her physically. A lot of women, when they get to that place, they give up on caring how they look, caring about taking care of themselves.
Wow.
They start focusing on something else. If they have children, the children become the main focus. They no longer are putting in any effort into the marriage, and it's because of the fact that there has been no investment.
What she said is so true, and I think it's biblical. When God approached a situation with Adam and Eve was the one who actually, the Bible says she was deceived.
Yeah.
But she was deceived because of Adam did not take care of some business in regards to stepping in and being a covering for her in that situation. Again, I point to the men when I see something like that, where there's this divide that has taken place, because you mentioned something where a lot of women will stop taking care of themselves. And see, a lot of men will say, I can't be romantic with you because I'm not attracted to you anymore. Well, it's because at some point she may have given up on trying to please you.
Right.
Because you don't demonstrate that you're attracted to her anyway. I've heard about this, and I can't imagine a woman being in this situation, but before the marriage she was one size. Get married and have children, and all of a sudden she puts on the weight, and then now the individual either expressly says so or implicitly indicates that I'm no longer attracted to you. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, brother, she just went through, a life transformation, and as she carried another human being, God naturally puts more weight on her so she can endure that process.
Right.
So if after that you don't recognize, first of all, that has taken place and what psychological impact it has to have on her, that's a time for you to draw close and to work with her.
Right.
To let her know that, I appreciate you. I want you to be your best. I want you to be as healthy as you can. I'm going to work with you.
Right.
To, if there needs to be some weight loss, listen, I'm going to diet with you. I'm going to go to the gym with you. And the interesting thing about this is that a lot of the guys that I've actually seen that have a problem with that look like they had a baby.
Yeah.
And one of I'm like, she had a baby, and yours just neglect. I mean, your stomach's way out here, but I think in both instances that got to that place because both of them quit.
Yeah.
They quit on the idea of being attractive to one another or even desiring to be that way to the other person because something has been severed. And it is my contention that what was severed was the lifeline of romance.
Right.
That person didn't feel valued, that person didn't feel worthy, and so they just allowed themselves to dissipate to a place where they're not even happy with themselves.
Right.
And so, one of the ways that I want you to think about romance is to make the analogy of building a fire.
Yeah.
Because, I've been assigned fire duty in our house of making sure that the fire, that we have a fire and that sort of thing. And what I've learned over doing it over a period of time, getting a fire started is not easy.
That's right.
I mean, it's not easy. You can have fire starter logs. You can have some nice dry wood. It actually takes some skill to start a fire and to maintain it because the fire logs, I've actually learned that through experience of having the fire logs actually do their job, the little things you put down the fire starter to get the fire started. But if you don't stack the logs in a certain way where air can get through and the wood is a certain character, is dry enough and there's enough wood, the fire starter will burn out.
Right, and you won't have a fire.
And you won't have a fire. So it takes more than the matches. It takes more than the wood. It takes more than a fire starter. It takes actually learning, having tried over a period of time to build a fire, learning how to maintain it, how to stoke it, when logs need to be added. I mean, you could add wood to a going fire and put it out.
Yeah, you can.
If you don't, if the fire's not, if the fire's not hot enough or it hasn't taken into the wood enough, you throw some more wood on there, you will put it out.
That's right.
And so romance is the same way. You need those necessary ingredients. You need wood, you need fire, you need a fire starter, so I believe that that's emotion, that's love, that's passion.
Right.
Those are the things that comprise the necessary components for romance. But then it takes a skill.
Yes.
After having tried it so many times and seeing what your results are and seeing what works and what does not work.
And building on that.
And making sure if you want the fire to keep going, knowing when to throw another log on there. It's something that is beautiful. When it's done right, everybody gathers around the fire. Everybody is blessed by it, and it's the same way with a marriage where there's romance. When the people take the time to learn how to keep that fire going, it becomes a place where people want to be around. I want to be around couples that's in love.
Yes.
Where I see romance, where I see when ain't nothing going on and we're at a business meeting or we're talking at a ministry event, I see a husband and wife look at one another, they smile or do something that shows that that there's that connect. I love being around people like that.
You want to be around healthy marriages that are full of romance. You don't want to be around people who are full of issues and having all types of trouble.
Yeah, yeah, and if romance has died, we got some things that can help you because and we didn't mention this earlier, but in the part we were talking about romance is just not an act.
Mm-hmm.
And this is specifically for men to remember. Romance is not just sex.
Exactly.
Like I said, many people just want to be romantic,
Mm-hmm.
and even
For a purpose.
yeah, for a purpose, and that person may even feel devalued
Right.
in that
Exactly.
in that perspective. So sex is not necessarily romance. The same thing with just buying a gift
Mm-hmm.
or having an event. I'm going to take you out to eat because it's Valentine's Day. How about taking me out to eat just because you think I'm that I'm worthy enough to have a nice meal?
Mm-hmm.
That you've actually planned. You made a decision. You planned to set aside and intelligently went through and figured out where I like to eat or what I like to eat,
Right.
and actually take me there. And it don't have to be an event.
Right.
Romance,
Mm-hmm.
which happens to be romantic, and then you have continued ongoing or pursuit. Just little things, just ongoing. I mean, you're watering your garden with glances, with whispers, like I said, just or flowers here and then something there, just something to let the person know, one, I'm thinking about you,
Right.
I appreciate you, I value you in whatever way or expression that you can find to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. And then some form of ongoing investment that can be found in something as small as words, or it could be something that is tangible.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a investment that you can make a withdrawal on. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the things that romance fails in regards to, or the reason why, is because it's work.
Mm-hmm.
And people give up on the work when they give up on themselves or the other person gives up. Now, how do you rekindle a romance? I'm going to say it. We said it before, but I'm going to say it again. It's a decision.
That's right.
Just like any change in your life that you want to take place, it starts with a quality decision. And I would buttress that decision with do some introspection.
Mm-hmm.
Do some examination, some evaluation. Think back to when you were romantically inclined to your spouse. Try to find that person again and build upon what it is that caused you to desire to spend your life with that person,
Right.
or to enter into a relationship with that person.
I think in making that decision, as a married couple, I think that you have to communicate regarding that decision because um, I think there has to be agreement on making the decision to move forward because you can have one person, part of the couple, who wants to make a decision to try to rekindle the romance, and the other person is like, I don't even want to go in that direction. So there needs to be some conversation, some agreement in regards to that decision so that you're both going in the same direction and you're both putting in effort.
And I totally agree, because you can't be in a relationship with yourself.
Right.
You can't romance yourself.
Yourself.
So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think that if the other person is not at a place where they're saying, no, I'm not in agreement with that, then I think that what has to happen then is you guys have to go through some some internal conversations in regards to how do we get to this place. You know, before you are even willing to receive kindness and those types of things from me, how did I hurt you, or what happened, and be transparent about it, because the reality of the fact is that you guys are still together.
Right.
So
there has to be something.
There's something there that you recognize that is valuable. You have to find out what that is. But I would even say, you would have to deal with the issues. And, one of the things that you might find out is that the other person may just need to hear you say that I'm wrong, or hear you say that, I'm sorry, or hear you say, I didn't know that hurt you and I won't do it again. Hear you say that I will be held accountable on whatever it might be.
Exactly.
And you would be surprised at what that will remove out of the way, so that true communication can start the process of healing, and romance can start to develop. And just like we said before, romance is not dependent on circumstances.
Right.
It can even be cultivated within bad circumstances.
Right.
You guys healing and growing and recovering together out of that situation can create a bond that romance can build upon.
Right.
And so don't count that out. But it starts with a quality of decision that I want to restore what it was. And we're talking about romance that has been broken.
Right.
I want to restore what it was that we had when we began. How do we get back to there? How do we clear the path of the things that are becoming obstacles in our ability to be one? And I believe that you're going to be blessed, as just by making that decision. The other person's going to appreciate it, and once that is done, God can do great things in the midst of it. The pursuit, if romance has broken down, it's because somebody has stopped pursuing.
Exactly.
So again, the decision to pursue again. If the person is open to it, as we said before, you can't pursue yourself. But if the person is open to be pursued, and maybe it's not like it was in the beginning, but you still have the ability to pursue through words, and building that person up, and doing things that are necessary to demonstrate what you feel concerning them. You need to do it.
Yeah.
You need to
put that effort in.
Yeah, you need to. There's something that happens in the pursuit, even if you're starting to re-pursue, that focuses you. It really does, because to pursue you have to focus on an objective. And if that person is your objective, a lot of those other things that were distractions will
fall off.
They'll start to fall off. So I believe that pursuit is part of the passion that is necessary for romance to be realized, because there's something that happens in it, that happens to you, that happens to the things that are around you, that allows you to focus on the individual that's being pursued, and that person will appreciate it too. The third thing, if romance is broken down, maintain whatever it is that you are doing in the pursuit. Don't allow it to be just event based.
Right.
Allow the person to know that I'm serious. I'm serious about this, and I'm going to continue to pursue you. And it doesn't matter what we encounter. It doesn't matter, how you look, how I look. We're going to work on these things together, and I'm going to continue to maintain and even escalate my level of pursuit.
Right.
The worst thing that you could do is start off real hot and heavy, doing all these different things, and all of a sudden it just wanes out.
Yeah.
The person will come to the conclusion that I wasn't worthy, or you didn't value me enough to continue the pursuit. And the third thing, again, like we said, if your romance is broken down, it's basically the elements of romance that we spoke of before. Make investments in the relationship. I think if it's broken down, then I think that they're necessarily, your investments might need to be greater.
Right.
And more consistent.
Right. And it's something that you really should not stop on, because even if things come together and the relationship seems to be better and you're able to rekindle the romance, in order to keep it, you have to continue to do those things. You can't stop because things are better now.
Yeah, think about it. If you started a fire and the fire was going, and all of a sudden you just decided that I'm not going to put any more logs on it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody going to be in the dark and the cold. I think the investment part of it, the depending on how great the damage that's been done,
Right.
the greater the investment. It's just like with anything when you're talking about if you're investing in a 401k and say for years you've neglected to do so,
Mm-hmm.
they will tell you if you want to sustain a certain level of living by your retirement age,
Right.
your deposit's going to have to be greater.
Right.
You're going to have to do more than somebody who started and maintained it at an earlier age. And the same principle applies in a relationship. I think the later on that you get in the relationship and you got more things to overcome,
Mm-hmm.
I think the actual investments have to be more demonstrative. It doesn't have to be more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it has to be if it's showing of emotion or appreciation or acts of kindness, they just have to be they might have to be more consistent.
Right.
To undo all of the things that has caused a person to feel devalued or unworthy. And so hopefully some of these things that we've shared with you guys on romance can help either rekindle, or if you are in a situation in a healthy relationship, to grow that fire.
Right.
Because it pays off. I mean, the investment, the decision, the consistency, the time, all of those things pay off over the years to where you get to a place where it becomes a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to think about it when I see my wife and it rises up in me. I just say it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I'm at a shop and I see flowers, I just get them. There's things that become almost habitual. You do them just out of, I think she would appreciate this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think
And she does.
and I think the more that you become accustomed to doing that, it doesn't have to become an event. It doesn't
That's
have to
right.
be something
That's
that
right.
you have to think about or you're put out in having to do. It's just become a lifestyle. So I pray that this has been a blessing to you. You have a Valentine's Day coming up. Make sure that you do something special, but at the same time, develop that habit
Yes.
of doing something
Keep doing special things.
and making that other person feel special. And the fruits that will be born as a result of that, be eating on it for years and years to come. So I'm Dr. J.C. Matthews, Gena Matthews. We love you so much. We pray the very best for you. Before Valentine's Day, we want to say Happy Valentine's Day and be blessed. God bless you.